Oh, baby, I've been waiting for this one. And I promise you, if you didn't react strongly one way or another to my Josh Rosen scouting report, you're going to with my Josh Allen scouting report. Because I don't care what the haters are going to say. I don't care what the other analysts and alleged draftniks are going to say. For my money, Mel Kiper is right. Josh Allen is the number one quarterback prospect in the 2018 NFL Draft. Brought to you by the same guy that said in October 2015 that Carson Wentz was the number one quarterback prospect in the class of 2016, when other people were talking about Christian Hackenberg, Connor Cook, and Cardale Jones. Boom! I could leave it right there. But no, I will actually attempt to give, unlike Mel Kiper, a real, valid justification as to why I do believe that Josh Allen is the most intriguing, the highest upside, and best prospect in this 2018 NFL Draft class. Let's look at who he is. Starting off with the good stuff, the positives, and there are plenty of them. He's got ideal size for the position, even more than ideal size, 6'5", 237 pounds. When you look at the grades below and you're asking, why did you give him that grade for his size on a scale of 0 to 10? Well, if you have better than prototype, better than ideal, you should be rewarded as such. And the dude is 6'5", 237 pounds, and he rocks it easily. He has more than enough size to be considered prototype for the position. And he absolutely has a truly special rocket launcher of a right arm. And you're going to ask yourself, well, didn't Mahomes have a special right arm last year and you only graded him as a 9.5? You're absolutely right. Now, what that is more of a measurement of was the first year of using that type of grading scale. And frankly, I got the grade wrong on Mahomes. I think I gave him a 9.5 for arm strength, and it should have been a 10.5 because it was special. Josh Allen's arm is better. Josh Allen's arm is stronger. He can even make throws that Patrick Mahomes cannot, and Mahomes can make a lot of throws. He can make a lot of big time throws. Josh Allen can make even more of them. That's why Josh Allen gets the grade that he gets for arm strength, because his stuff is truly special, truly otherworldly. I also want to call out that I feel like his mechanics are pretty solid. You could say, well, there's a little bit of wind-up to his delivery, and that is true. That said, though, even with that windup, he has so much arm strength, he gets so much zip on the ball that it cancels out any additional length in his throwing motion. It really truly does, similar to like a Cam Newton. Cam Newton has a bit of a longer throwing motion, but he has a rocket launcher for an arm when he wants to fit stuff in there, so it really negates itself. It's a bit of a wash, but I feel like Allen can be really good when he controls himself, and that's a key to him, is kind of controlling himself and slowing himself down. He can set his feet pretty well. He squares himself well to the target, specifically on the move, and utilizes his whole body in his throwing motion. I also like his pocket presence and his field vision, because I think they are better than he gets credit for. Sometimes, yes, he can get a tad too quick to scatter out of the pocket. There are moments where it seems like he's in too much of a rush, and that is true. But this is a guy that is willing to hang tough in the pocket, show me the ability to move within the pocket, move front and back in the pocket. A guy that's willing to stand tall and take the big hit, who's got enough ability to go through his progressions. And that's the thing that I think is really underrated about his game, is the ability to go through the defense with his eyes. He is not a one read and throw type of guy like several of the prospects in this draft class at the quarterback position. He is not that type of guy at all. He is a guy that, given some time, will be able to go through his progressions. He will actually try to scan the entire field. He will try to go one way and come back to it. He will try to move the safeties. He's shown me a very good ability to do that over the last 2 years at Wyoming. And he's a really good athlete who can make all types of plays on the move, and he can get some yards with his feet. And it's that type of athleticism that's going to help him to potentially stick at the NFL level. When you look at a guy and you're talking about constructing a quarterback out of a block of granite or something, you look and you see somebody like a Josh Allen, 6'5", almost 240 pounds, with a hell of an arm, and he can move. It's a pretty good building block. That's a pretty good place to start. But he's not a perfect prospect. And I will give you that people are going to have concerns and real serious concerns. And that's not to say that I don't have similar concerns. The one concern I don't think is talked about enough with him is that he's had a couple of injuries to his shoulder. Broken collarbone, AC joint sprain, forced him to miss time in both 2015 and 2017. That's a little concerning. Even though he came back and he still has an absolute hose and a rocket launcher of a right arm, the fact is the number one ability that a quarterback can have for being a franchise guy in the NFL is the ability of availability. And over his 3 years at Wyoming, he didn't always have the best ability of availability. Now, some of these are fluke injuries. Some of these are things that happen, but there's still concerns, especially when you're talking about his arm. His decision-making can be lacking. That's true. He can force throws, and he really has some brain farts at times. And there are just those occasional plays, you just wonder, what the hell were you thinking? What the hell was going on? And I cannot argue against that, because that is absolutely true. Accuracy is also a struggle for him. It is a big struggle for him at times, not in terms of some of the spectacular throws and the big throws he makes down the field. He can be very, very pinpoint on those. It's the basic throws. It's the slants. It's the outs. There's something amiss far too often in terms of his accuracy, and that is a concern, and it is a legitimate concern, and honestly, the single biggest concern that you will hear about him when it comes to the NFL level. It is the single biggest negative that will be used against him. It is the single biggest thing that people will use as a justification to not view him as a top prospect in this class. But I want to talk a little bit, too, about the narratives when it comes to Josh Allen. Quarterbacks who aren't accurate don't make it. Well, in recent times, you could say maybe there's a little bit of a correlation between quarterbacks not being accurate in college and then not translating to the pros, like Connor Cook and some other guys. But the truth is, Connor Cook really hasn't had much of an opportunity. Not that I was ever that high on his upside anyways, but he's in Oakland behind Derek Carr. You know, how much of an opportunity is he really going to get? But then I think historically, like going way, way back in the day, Brett Favre, his last year at Southern Miss, I think his completion percentage was like 51%. And he was a first ballot Hall of Famer. Dan Marino, his last year at Pittsburgh, going back to the 80s, again, much different time, but his accuracy was like 56%. And he's routinely thought of as one of the best pure passers in NFL history, and he was a first ballot Hall of Famer. Just saying. Statistics aren't the only indication in measurement of a quarterback's accuracy, nor should they be, especially when other quarterbacks play in systems and play in certain situations that give them a lot of easy, quick reads, a lot of quick, easy, short throws. And Josh Allen didn't have those. He doesn't play in a system that uses a lot of wide receiver and bubble screens and quick tosses and stuff. A lot of what they did at Wyoming was down the field vertical passing. So naturally already his accuracy percentage is going to be lower than some others, because he's going to make more difficult, more complex throws. There are going to be more variables at play. There's naturally, the further you get away, the tougher it's going to be. Well, that does impact Josh Allen in his accuracy figures. You also have other quarterbacks that play in systems where they go with their first read and they're designed to take their first read, so it eliminates a lot of the thinking of the position. Josh Allen doesn't have that benefit. He doesn't play in a primary one read and throw type of offense or a one read, throw or run type of offense. He plays in an offense that's much more traditional, much more pro style in its setup and in its design, where he's going to have to read defenses. He's going to have to go through progressions. He's had to process things that other prospects in this draft class just haven't. So to me, in a certain way, when you're looking at him, you have to understand that the environment, the situation, the system that he played in is different, and it's not necessarily always comparing apples and apples, or it's more like comparing red delicious apples to oranges or whatever the hell might be. And you also had times where teammates should have caught the ball, and those things impact accuracy statistics as well. And then you'll hear people talk about how he struggled against Iowa and Oregon in 2017. What they will fail to mention is that from that Wyoming team, he lost 4 offensive starters to the NFL from 2016. Rudiger, Hill, Gentry, Hollister, those are all guys on that offense around him that went to the NFL. They weren't there in 2017. So that's going to impact your performance against a higher level of competition. His supporting cast around him vastly declined in 2017. But even with that said, when you talk about like Oregon's some great defensive juggernaut. And you could say, well, that kind of makes the case that Josh Allen didn't perform well against them. But there are plenty of other teams that he played against that probably had better defenses, frankly, than Oregon did, that he wasn't so bad against. Yeah, he had his really bad games, but he had some really good ones too. And the fact of the matter is, when I look at the tools, when I look at the physical upside, I see a very raw prospect that is just scratching the surface of what his potential could be. I want that potential because I feel like he has more upside than anybody else. I feel like he's going to get with the right NFL system, and he's going to become a stud. I think of him a lot like Cam Newton, and when you think about Cam Newton, accuracy is not the name of his game. He's lucky to complete 60% of his passes. But my God, Cam Newton can make some big-time special throws down the field. He can fit the ball into tight windows that a lot of other guys just can't, not to mention the type of weapon that he is as an athlete and as a runner, and his ability to extend plays, to keep plays alive in the pocket and outside of the pocket. While, Josh Allen is not quite that as an athlete, he's not that bad. He's not a slouch. And you're going to hear a lot of comparisons to Carson Wentz, and some of those are valid. But I feel like Carson Wentz was obviously a little more refined coming out of North Dakota State than Josh Allen is coming out of Wyoming. There are some differences. I feel like from a physical profile, in terms of their game, I feel like Josh Allen more closely compares to Cam Newton than he does at Carson Wentz. So I went nuts. I put a first-round grade on Josh Allen, and I don't care who knows it, and I don't care who hates on me for it, because a lot of these clowns like John Ledyard, no offense, but when I sit there and talk about how Rosen is hot garbage and overrated, they come back at me and sit there and call me all types of things and question all types of things about me. These are the same type of clowns that guys like Cardale Jones rated higher on their draft boards than Carson Wentz. So as far as I'm concerned, if I don't know, then you don't know either. Either of us know shit. Sometimes it comes down to situation and opportunity and the coaching and so many other things. But the truth of the matter is I get that similar feeling with Josh Allen that I did with Carson Wentz. And even if sometimes my eyes tell me one thing, and even if sometimes the popular speak tells me one thing, and even if sometimes the draft nicks tell me one thing, I always find that when I venture away from my instincts and from my gut, that's when I get in the most trouble, and that's when I make the most mistakes. So I'm going to sit there, and for some reason, I don't know why I'm doing this with my hand, because it looks like, what it looks like I'm doing. And frankly, if I was doing it and it was this high, we'd be having a whole different discussion. But Josh Allen, to me, does swing the big stick. And for my money, 91.875 is his grade. He's a first-round pick. For my money, he should be the number one pick in this draft by the Cleveland Browns. That's right, I said Josh Allen should be the number one pick in the 2018 NFL draft. Because in the grand scheme of things, there is no sure thing in this quarterback class. You want to talk about Mayfield, you want to talk about Rosen, Darnold, Jackson, Allen too. They all have significant flaws. They all have significant questions that should make anybody uneasy about his guy being clearly head and shoulders above the rest. But when I look at the complete and total package and what each guy could be, nobody has the upside of Josh Allen in this draft at the quarterback position. If you are confident in your team's infrastructure, you are confident in your coaching staff and in your system, and you know you're good enough where you can get the most out of him, then you take Josh Allen and wait a few years, and then you're hoisting a Lombardi trophy.